Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth edition of Ananke's Women in Literature Festival. This is the final day, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome two amazing speakers, allies, Aekta Kapoor and Apoorva Gairola. Uh, Apoorva, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, absolutely. You said that right.
Great. So today's fireside chat is the topic for our fireside chat is language, love, and spirituality in divisive times. This is an Ishi panel, um, and I'd love to talk a little bit about Ekta Kapoor. Ekta Kapoor is the founder and editor of Ishi, a digital media platform that amplifies women's voices and stories of our shared humanity. She features in and as an unsuitable girl in the web series Love Storia on Amazon Prime. So, welcome, Ekta.
Thank you, Sabine. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so glad to be partnering with Ananke yet again this year. And may you guys just keep going and bringing this, these conversations to many more people around the world.
Thank you so much. We do it together. Thank you so much for being such an amazing ally and partner. Apoorva Gairola is a psychology professional and journalist who is passionate about mental health, women's, and gender issue. So, Apoorva, welcome on board.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here and thank you for including me.
Over to you, Apoorva.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, Ekta. Let me start with
Hello.
something very simple. How are you today?
Yes, all good. Everything is going fine, and I'm so happy to have you on the other end today asking me these questions.
I'm so glad to be here. So one time, the tables have turned and I get to ask you questions. So, um, okay, so let's start off. You're the founder and editor of Ishi, which is an independent digital media platform. It highlights women's voices and stories of our and focuses on stories of our shared humanity. In these times of extreme division, these divisive times, as the title says, how do you manage to even focus on the shared humanity aspect? It seems almost impossible. How do you manage to do that?
So, the point of focusing on stories of our shared humanity is that uh, I refuse to identify people solely by their ideology. And I insist on seeing the humanity under it all and seeing people for who they are. I'm interested in their stories. I'm interested in what makes them who they are. I'm interested in their struggles, their inspirations. And I always see that first. I see that before I see what political ideology they follow, or what religion, or what guru, or what, anything else that comes in the space of the cognitive realm. Because my experience has shown me that your opinions change, and as people, over your lifetime you're going to change a lot of times. Your opinions are going to change, your experiences are going to change, and for the sake of those few years of, when you may be holding different opinions with people you love, I refuse to give up on the people I love. And for me, the soul connection, the heart connection is way more important than what ideology they follow. And so that's why I've also created Ishi as a space where people of all ideologies are actually are featured. And of course it's a platform for women, but even otherwise in my personal life, in the last few years we've had a lot of polarization on political lines happening everywhere in society, including in our WhatsApp groups with our family members. But there is a stubborn part of me that refuses to give up on my people and on the people I love and my family and people who are important to me. And I don't like to allow those things to come in the way, because governments are going to change, but your family is going to be your family forever. So for me, it's a kind of a stubborn insistence in believing in the humanity in people, and in believing that what brings us together is a lot more than what keeps us apart. And there are a lot of things that we share in common with one another, including people we have completely opposite worldviews, but we still have a lot more in common than those worldviews. So I insist on seeing that. And that is my work. That's my work that I've chosen for this life.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good stubborn, and we need that kind of stubborn in the world, and we need people who focus, on the empathy aspect of things and being able to relate to other people's personal identity as opposed to, which focuses on the person as an individual as opposed to their social identity. So I think you prioritize that, and that's incredible. So. So you are a writer and an editor, and you've dedicated your life to the right use of language. What is the wrong use of language, and what can be done to rectify that?
Yeah, as even the theme of the whole Ananke Women in Literature Festival this year is language and erasure. For me, language is not just something that you use for communication, but it's also something that's a tool of creation. So when you say what you speak, what you write, the language you're using is not just expressing what you're thinking or feeling or believing, but it's also creating exactly those things. Your language is creating the world that you live in. It's creating the kind of world that you want to live in. So, I mean, I suppose if somebody goes through all the terms that are used on Ishi, you'll find a lot more positive terms and words than negative ones. Because for me, that again has been a conscious exercise and a conscious personal discipline and spiritual practice to use words to, that reflect the world I want to live in, that the world that I want to create. So I will, use positive terms to describe other people and myself. And and even if you try it in your life, if you go through your day using positive words, you'll feel a lot better, versus if you go through your day using a lot of angry or say abusive words, or if you say a lot of words that reflect a lot of hatred, or a lot of negative emotion, or negative ideas. So words are powerful, not just in terms of how they make other people feel, but also in creating the kind of space that you want people to be able to feel included in. Our words, for me, there's a certain gender aspect to it as well, which because I started my career uh, in English language. So I went from books publishing to English media. And then I had the opportunity to work in an organization that was a Hindi newspaper, the digital arm of a Hindi newspaper, where really this whole concept of language for me became very interesting, because here I'm trying to balance, not just, we're not just looking at what the meaning of the word is. We're also looking at the intention, or the feeling or the emotion behind the word. For instance, I mean, in Hindi, you will put it as the bhav. शब्द के पीछे भाव क्या है? So we are looking at the intention, the emotion behind that word. And so the website that I was running was a fashion website. It was in English, Hindi, and Gujarati, three languages. But at that time, there weren't too many fashion journalists in Hindi, and I suppose there still aren't perhaps too many. So what we did is that we had a team of English writing journalists who would write the articles in English, fashion articles, which would be translated to Hindi and Gujarati. And it was a very experimental world, that I lived in at that time, because we were constantly trying to find how do you translate not just the words, but also the emotion behind the word. Because in fashion, you're trying to create a certain aspiration, a certain coolness, a certain vibe, which, how do you translate that in the Hindi? So first of all, that part was challenging. And for me, it was very surprising when I was told by the Hindi team that you can't use the word aurat, because you have to use the word mahila, or you have to use nari. And I was not finding mahila or nari to be gel with sort of the fashion vibe that we were trying to create. It's a very formal sort of way of addressing a woman. And it bothered me, like, why can't I use aurat? And then somebody told me, well, you don't use word aurat it's not respectful, or it's there's something derogatory about using the word aurat for aurat. And that was very puzzling for me. And
Yeah.
uh, I often used to like fight about it, like, and then it reminded me of another boss I had who used to use the word auratpan or auratpana, not
Hmm.
to mean womanhood, but to mean behaving like a woman. And that is also used in a negative way for
Yeah.
somebody who's throwing a tantrum or somebody who is being gossipy or who's generally not being nice to people. And again, I found that a little offensive, and I found it demeaning to the whole
Mhm.
idea of what women are and what women are supposed to be. And so that's where I realized, even the word diva that we use, auratpana actually translates to behaving like a diva, which again
Right.
is taken in a negative way as somebody who
Yeah,
is
more than often.
entitled. Yeah, and there's no equivalent term that you can find for men, and in fact, any term that is used for men that would even hint at a certain femininity or behaving like a woman, it would be taken in a negative way. So in Hindi, for instance, you'll say, he wears bangles, chudi pehna do isko, or whatever. It's like an
Hmm.
insult for a man to wear bangles, which is the realm of the woman. And
Hmm.
any term which would make it seem that he is slightly has certain feminine
Feminine.
characteristics, yeah, it makes him less. It reduces his
Manhood.
manhood. And so I found it quite offensive, that why should being a woman be such a problem, and why should it be an insult for a man to be called having feminine characteristics. And um, so yes, so for me, language, it's important for me. I try to use very gender neutral terms as much as I can on Ishi as well, because I don't want to bring in certain connotations that I don't intend to be portraying in my writing. But what gives me hope is the younger generation and the way they use language, and they are
Hmm.
much more inclusive than my generation was. And I
Hmm.
came across an Instagram reel in which this one boy is telling the other boy that you need to first put toner, and then you need to put moisturizer, and then you need to put on your serum or whatever. He's giving sort of the process of skincare, and the other guy asked him, how do you know all these things? And he's like, मेरी बंदी ने मेरे को बताया था. So like, so bandi is like it's a colloquial term for woman,
Yeah.
but it's actually the real word is banda, which is man. So it's like, but banda and bandi can be used for boyfriend and girlfriend
Yeah.
in a very in a very like nice way. It's in a
Yeah.
sort of a
It's
it's
cool
a
and hip,
pleasant,
and
yeah, it's
yeah.
pleasant, it's young,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
used in an equal way. There is
You.
no sense of something bad about it. And I liked it very much. And I was like, that's a
Yeah.
nice new word to introduce in the vocabulary. And
Right.
similarly, there's a word that a lot of people in my neighborhood, especially a lot of the workers in the neighborhood, they would use is ladies log. So log is people and ladies log is like lady people. And
Lady
it's
people.
used it's used as a polite way of saying aurat, so they don't want to say the word aurat, so they will say
Hmm.
ek ladies log aayi thi, so it's even if you're a
Hmm.
single person, single woman, but to be
Hmm.
respectful to you, they'll say ek ladies log aayi thi. And I like that. I think we are trying to mold a language to fit what we need it to be, which is the great thing about
Yeah.
language, that it's not stagnant, it's growing. And the
Yeah.
generations are coming up with their own terms, and they are coming up with respectful terms for women as well,
Yeah.
which is very encouraging. And I hope there will be a time when the word aurat will not have a negative connotation
Yeah.
as
Definitely.
well.
Yeah. No, it reminds me of ma'am and madam, which are essentially the same terms. But then madam, when you say madam, it kind of has this negative connotation oftentimes, and ma'am is more respectful in some way. So, yeah, well, that's super interesting. I had no idea about aurat being derogatory, but after you explained it, I thought about it, and yeah, makes sense. Um, So moving on to the next question. You were recently featured in the web series Love Story, and your love story has inspired many a people. It has been a subject of discussion. What was it like to be a part of, TV web series, to be open and vulnerable about such an intimate part of your life, and that too on screen, on camera? The thought of it, makes me nervous. I am not even the one who's doing it, But what was it like? If you could share about that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, my story, my love story, is not really that unique, and it's not really exceptional. I mean, people get divorced, people get remarried, people have reconstituted families.
Yeah.
It's not such a big deal. But what is a big deal is that people don't talk about it, because we've created a culture where we've created a certain norm of what a normal family is supposed to be like, what a normal couple is supposed to be like, and it's that norm is based on a very cisgender, heteronormative, and even patriarchal view of looking at the world. Um, that and that normal is very different from my lived experience of what. Yeah, so what society says is supposed to be good and right and normal, I found that to feel really bad, for me. And what society says is supposed to be abnormal or broken family or failed marriage, and all. First of all, we have this concept of failure. So failure is, again, something negative, and when it's assigned to something like a marriage,
Yeah.
it's like you somehow failed, like something is wrong with you for not staying in your marriage till the end of your life, even if it's an abusive marriage. It's a failure that you left. But that was different from my lived experience of it, because for me, getting out of a bad marriage was a liberating experience. And for me, having a reconstituted family was felt more right, and it felt I felt I had more agency in that situation. So my lived experience did not match with what society had conditioned me to believe 25 years ago. So I began to reject what society is telling me, and I decided, let me experience it for myself. And I will only believe what my experience tells me and what my inner wisdom and the God within me tells me. So, so for me, speaking about or being open about my life doesn't take courage, because it's more important to me what I think of me than what other people think of me. And what other people think of me doesn't change what I think of me. It's my relationship with the God within me is so, like, going strong
It's been
that
strong.
it doesn't other people's thoughts or of opinions of me just go off, like, it's not it doesn't affect me. And the other thing is that because we've created this whole idea of normal family, and anything that goes away from that family is a failure, and we've created this idea that failure is a bad thing, people don't speak about these things. People don't want to come out and talk about the challenges they're facing. They only want to talk about the quote unquote perfect parts of their life. It's like that. And this is going on in society way before social media came, to project the good parts and to hide the bad parts. Not wash your dirty linen in public, as they say. Not speak about the bad bits. Even if you're going through a bad time, you should not be speaking about it. You should only be a perfect front, which again is different from my lived experience. Because when I started talking about it to people I love, or I started talking about it in public, my experience is not that I'm going to have a hard time. My experience is that people are reaching out to me. People are feeling safe to open up in front of me. People
Yeah.
are finding, ways to communicate the problems in their own life. And there's kind of a social catharsis, or a personal or a relational catharsis that happens when one person is willing to speak out about their challenges. So again, my lived experience says that I have not had a problem in sharing my life story and my struggles with people. On the contrary, I've only attracted, better friendships. I've attracted help. I've attracted support from, unexpected quarters. I have managed to inspire other people to reach out and seek help if they needed it. So again, my the lived experience is very different from what society conditions you to believe. And that's why I would rather go with what my heart says, rather than what other people are saying.
Yeah. So, what kind of reactions have you received? Any, you're talking about people writing to you and opening up to you. So, the after the web series experience, if there's some anecdote of some reaction that, or
Oh,
some
yes,
reactions that you
absolutely.
have received.
So many, like hundreds of reactions coming on all the different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Also because both my husband and I are in a field where we are journalists, we're writing, we're interviewing people, but people don't know what your own story is. They only see that professional side of you, and they don't see the personal side. So definitely the people that I've interviewed, they have been very surprised to know that I have this personal story as well. But I think a lot of really heartwarming stories for me were when women who reached out to me like just randomly, and they just wanted to share that they were going through such moments or hard times, or a young girl is like, I'm 27 and I thought I'll never find somebody, and I'm like, 27 is like, you shouldn't even worry about it, like you shouldn't even be
Right.
thinking about that. And then there's a woman who had to actually give up her child because she wanted to leave that marriage, but she couldn't take her child along, she had to leave her child. And she says, no one can understand that pain, and the way you expressed it, I felt like somebody can understand that pain, of being forced to choose between your life and your child's life. So these are tough decisions that people take, but like I said, you don't want to talk about it because it's less than the perfect image of what marriage is supposed to be like, or normal family is supposed to be like. But I think we should talk about it, and I think the way people have reacted to this has been that, okay, if she can talk about it, then maybe it's okay to talk about it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's one of the most important things that has come up from this.
Yeah. And that way you have empowered a lot of women, you know,
Yeah.
given them courage. Yeah. No, that's incredible. So you've rightly pointed out that there's this embedded, deeply embedded dysfunction in the social domain, and how much it affects more women than men, and especially in this aspect of life. And there are some things that I can relate to, but um, so when it comes to this idea of individual freedom and agency, you use the term agency, especially when it's about women's agency in the right to choose a life partner and what sort of a life they want, whether they want to be in a marriage or not want to be in a marriage, how they want to move forward with their life, how they want to design their life. Why do you think it's such a controversial subject in this country and in this culture? Why is that so?
Um, so let's come to the aspect of the women's agency. Um, the biggest threat, I think, to a patriarchal culture is women's agency, and that's again, it's not. It's because our society is built on very strong principles of caste purity, marriage within the religion, within the caste. I mean, I think 99% of marriages in India are still arranged marriages, and I would say a very small percentage of those arranged marriages would be welcoming somebody from another religion or from another caste or from another community. Despite the fact that India is such a diverse country, we have so many different religions and communities and languages and cultures, but you'll hardly find an arranged marriage that is accepting or that is welcoming people from another community, as a possible match. And the ones that are those kind of marriages are the so-called quote unquote love marriages, where
Right.
people have fallen in love with the other person and have not considered what their background or their caste or their culture is. And in fact, not just my story, if you look at all the stories in the web series Love Storia, there are
Mhm.
6 of them, and the common thread in all of them is the commitment of both the men and the women in those relationships to for giving space for that woman's agency. Not only is she utilizing, and she's reached a point maybe through her own personal growth,
Mhm.
but she is acting out of her own agency, and the male partner in her life, or of course we also have love beyond the shackles of gender in this series. um,
Mhm.
there is a space that the partner has created for for female agency, and that is beautiful, because when each person in a relationship is allowed to be the highest of who they are, the relationship naturally is going to be a space of growth. It's not going to be a space of suppression, because each of you is trying to help the other one reach their highest self, you know. And I feel women do have a special power. We do have special powers, and when we feel we're in a space where we are loved and we are respected and we have trust and respect for the other person, I think we are quite invincible. And when men are too, but for women, it's a new feeling, because for so many centuries, we've not had that kind of agency. Very, very, very few women would have had the agency to choose their life partners. But now
Right.
that society is changing and we are choosing, you realize how different it's like going for many years without wearing glasses, and then one day you wear glasses and you realize, wow, things are so clear, you know. It's almost like that kind of a life shift that happens when you move from a space of always following social codes and always following rules that other people have set for you,
Mm-hmm.
versus applying your own agency and being responsible for your own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So because of our insistence on caste purity, there is a need to bind women and to
Yeah.
make sure that there's no blood from any other line that comes into this line, which creates a lot of problems, because that's where you have the suppression of the female agency, the female sexuality, the female freedom. That's where the need comes. So the fact that these stories are worth making into a movie, especially my story, which is about a remarriage, and we're from different communities, and the fact that that itself is considered a big deal is pretty sad,
Yeah.
because it shows how far India has to go to be a progressive society where it's normal to do that. I was telling, so I met a couple in the US last month, and the wife is Brazilian and the husband is German. And they were like, why did somebody make a movie about your love story? And I told them, well, I was married before, and then I had kids, and then I got married again. And, they were like looking at me completely like
Yeah.
puzzled, because they were like, what's the story in that? Like, what's the big deal? Like, why
Right.
did that have to become a movie? But, so my cousin was telling me the other day, it just shows that even 50 years from now, it's going to be really hard for people to be able to even accept these kind of stories as normal stories. And maybe our future generations, they're more inclusive, they're more, uh, you know,
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
more politically correct, and they have they're different kind of a mindset.
Open-minded.
Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe our grandchildren or great grandchildren will look at love story and say, what's the big deal about these stories? Like, why was it such a big deal to marry someone from another community or caste or religion, or or gender? So hopefully, yeah, a few years
Yeah.
down the line, this kind of a series will not be needed to
Yeah.
wake people up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully. And in hoping, do you even foresee a change happening? Well, you said that hopefully it will, but is there something that we can do in order to, I don't know, be a catalyst in some way or bring about the change? Is there something that's in our power in the present to actually bring about this change?
Oh, yes,
Speeding up the
absolutely.
process?
Simply, yes, yes, just showing up as you are and showing
Mm-hmm.
up for your highest truth. That is what is needed from everybody. For
Mm-hmm.
whether it's at your workplace, whether it's in your life, in your relationships, the
Mm-hmm.
more we know ourselves, the better relationship we have with ourselves, the better relationships we have with others. And the more we accept in ourselves, the more we accept in others.
Mm-hmm.
So, the work that people are doing, people like India Love Project, people even, the team behind, the dramatic team, the Amazon Prime team, the people who've put together this whole project, they're all doing that work that is needed to create inclusive spaces in society. So
Yeah.
I think we should keep doing it. We shouldn't give up. This is a work that's been given to us, and we should keep doing it. And that's how a movement grows, when more and more people are willing to make it normal. When the word bandi becomes normal, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And so it's absolutely important for everybody not to give up and to keep pushing for it, in the way you speak to yourself and in the way that you speak to other people.
Mhm. So instead of abiding to the set of rules that has been laid out for us as women, uh, we do focus on the rule breakers and being a rule breaker ourselves. So thank God that we have them, and
No,
I
go,
hope
no, no,
everyone
go.
of us.
I would still say go with your lived experience because,
Yeah,
a certain rule may work for you, and a
true.
certain rule may not. So
Yeah,
go with your own lived experience, and if after living through it you feel that nah, this was
does
like,
not work. Yeah,
yeah, this wasn't true. That if you're
yeah,
divorced, you're going to be unhappy. No, I mean divorce was liberating for me. So
yeah,
go with your own lived experience of it, and then decide
yeah,
what
yeah.
should, yeah, what you want to stand for.
Yeah. So instead of taking things and accepting things at face value, to actually experience them and decide for ourselves. Well, there's
Yeah.
agency and freedom in that. So, um, and you're one person who is inspiring all of us. I mean, you've inspired me for I don't even know how many years now. It's hard to count.
Yeah, you and I have
Um,
worked together, I think started working together more than 10 years ago.
yeah, it's been about 13, 14, maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. Uh, so a decade and a half of knowing you, I know that spirituality means a lot to you, and it has actually played. It's not just something that you read about and talk about, but it has actually played a big role in your life. It's been impactful. Um, you have in fact written a spiritual memoir which is called 100 Paths, and would you like to talk about your spiritual journey? And has it also coincided somehow with your professional journey? And if so, how has your spiritual journey affected your professional journey?
Yeah, so many years ago when I was in a difficult space, as a single mother, and I was struggling with a lot of things, um, you know I had the aspiration to seek God. And I, my spiritual journey actually began exactly 20 years ago when I got into Nichiren Buddhism by a colleague in my workplace who introduced me. And that's when I realized that I'm an eternal soul. And I began to read up about concepts of Buddhism, concepts of, all our philosophies, our Hindu philosophies, and various other spiritual traditions from around the world. And I started to see myself more as a soul that's here for a short period of time, who's given this lifetime, this identity, these challenges. And then, what is happening on the outside is again not as important as what's happening inside my head. So I'm looking for answers, for healing, for understanding within my head to why certain things happened the way they happened. And so one of the things that, say about, I think, 14, 15 years ago, uh, I was really seeking God at that point, and I want to have that experience of God. But I'm so caught up in my life. I was a single mother. I had two young children. I had a very hectic job in a fashion magazine, and traffic issues, and a lot of financial issues. A lot of struggle was there. So I'm like, how do I leave all this and go and live in the mountains and work on my spiritual journey? So I decided to look for God where I was. And look for God for me meant to look for the highest good in that situation, to look for the learning and the growth and the realization in that situation. So I began to note down everything that I would notice that day. And so, what began initially as a practice later became a habit. So, while I'm looking for the good in every situation, if my kids are fighting, what can I learn from that? If my boss has been mean with me, what can I learn from that? So, I began to learn from everything that was happening in my life, and I began noting it down. And after a while, it becomes a habit. So every day I would end up, it's like if I tell you to look for something yellow, you'll suddenly notice a million things that are yellow around you. So the same thing happened. The minute I'm looking for something to be grateful for, I started noticing hundreds of things to be grateful for. And and then it becomes like a vicious, instead of a vicious circle, it becomes a virtuous circle. So then you attract more things to be grateful for. And then you're like, wow, So everything every day becomes a miracle. Because you first made the effort to look for the positive in the situation, and then you only saw the positive in every situation, and then more positive things kept happening to you even without aspiring for it. So that's what happened with me. The more time, more energy I spent on my inner healing, my inner growth, the more external circumstances kept changing on their own. And
Mhm.
you make peace with a certain boss, you suddenly realize you're in a new situation with a new job and earning much more, and that boss is nowhere in the picture. So the more I would make an effort to heal myself, to become more compassionate, to become more understanding, to root out the trigger points in myself, to change my responses to situations, the more the external environment would keep throwing up these amazing things. I mean, even something like love story, yeah, it's not something I ever aspired to come in a
Right.
movie, or to be famous in this way, or you know it never even struck me ever. It was never an ambition, but it just sort of happened, and then it leads you to more things to be grateful for. When people reach out to me, I feel grateful that I was able to inspire somebody, and then it leads to again, like I said, it becomes a virtuous circle. So my emphasis on my spiritual journey, my own inner healing. I've gone through various types of meditations, various types of healing modalities, various types of therapies, meditations, yoga, pranayama. I still do pranayama every day. The more I
Mhm.
look within, the more I see things happening in my environment, which I wouldn't have ever consciously, expected or even wanted, but it happens in a beautiful way, and it leads to more things to be grateful for. So my professional journey, my relationships, everything changed without always focusing on the outside. Though I was focusing on the inside, these things in my environment kept changing, and they changed
Yeah.
for better, and they gave me more reasons to be grateful.
Yeah.
So that's for me. My spiritual journey has been it is the main part of my professional and relationships journey, because
Yeah.
that that's where everything began, with me looking at me and seeing what more can I do within this. How more do I love myself? How more do I accept myself?
Yeah. No, that's incredible. It's almost like inculcating some sort of a habit to reframe every situation in a positive light, and once you do that, it brings about a definite change to yourself and then thereby to your life as well. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Also super inspiring. Um, so keeping in line with that, there are many young women. I'm one of them. I still like to believe I'm young, but
Of
there are
course you are.
many young, but there are many young women, well, younger than me. Let's talk about the younger people who are looking to get into the fields of media, publishing, literature, um, and it's a very fast-changing dynamic. What sort of advice do you have for them? After having this incredible long journey. Um, Multifaceted, all the ups and downs after all of this, what advice would you have for them, for the younger people, women?
Yeah. So being young is probably a biological age, but being youthful is a mindset.
Okay.
So, having the desire to learn, to grow, to study, to expand your horizons, to constantly make effort, is something that anybody of any age can develop. So, age is not a barrier for youthfulness. Um, Regarding the media, to be honest, these days I'm a little disillusioned with the state of the media, especially in India. What was once supposed to be the fourth pillar of a democracy is now just become a sort of a mouthpiece for the powers that be and people in positions of power. And
Mhm.
our mainstream organizations are spending a lot more time and effort pandering to the government in power, rather than doing their job and of holding that government accountable,
Yeah.
and make keeping it in line, and keeping those people in line, and doing what they're supposed to do, which is to lead the people and to govern a country. um, and I think you'll have better journalism coming out of YouTube and of other spaces that are not mainstream media. So for
Yeah.
somebody who is looking to get into the media, somebody who is young and has a lot of aspiration, who has not been in the field for a while, and they think that they can change the world and they can make a difference and they can stand up to the position people in positions of power,
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably have to look at alternative spaces, because the mainstream media is not that place anymore, unfortunately. And it breaks my heart to say that, but that's how things have become. And but for anybody, whether they are in this profession or any other profession, um, I really believe that if you're already in a situation where you may not necessarily love the work that you do, uh, you know or it's not something that you would have wanted to do, I think you can still use it as an opportunity for growth. Like,
Yeah.
use every situation in your life as an opportunity for growth, whether it is, if it is something pleasurable, well, wonderful, be grateful for it and put in your best, and give your thanks for it every day, and see how much more you can do with that. And if you're in a situation of pain, do the exact same thing. Be grateful for it, because it is pointing out what you can change in yourself and in your life. And if you feel that you're in a any situation where you can make a difference, do it. Make that difference in your own space, and then that creates a ripple effect, and that maybe you'll inspire other people to do the same and to change the system from
Mm-hmm.
within. So whether you're in a situation where you love your job and you're happy, or whether you're in a situation where you're unhappy with your job, make the most of it, see the positive in it, like I did, see the god in every situation, and the situation changes, and then you become the agent of that change. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what our purpose as human beings is, to
Mm-hmm.
constantly keep making that effort and to never
Yeah.
give up on hope, and to keep thinking that no, even that one little change that I'm going to make in my day today,
Mm-hmm.
switching from a plastic bottle to a refillable bottle, even a small change you make in your life is going to impact at a macro level as well. So have
Mm-hmm.
that conviction in yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
believe that if you are in a situation, then there is a purpose for you being in that situation. So
Mm-hmm.
make the most of that. Take the good of it, take the good from both the good times and the bad times, because both of them are making you a better person, a stronger person, a more compassionate person, somebody who's adding value to the world, and not just uh, living by default, but creating
Yeah.
value in your life, so that
Mm-hmm.
by the time you meet your maker and you meet your god, you'll go there with a smile on your face and a sense of having done the best that you could have done in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep making that effort in whatever profession you're in. uh,
Mm-hmm.
do your bit, wake up to your truth, and then live your truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And the capacity for growth and the space for growth remains no matter what you're going through,
Absolutely.
and where you are. That's beautiful, and a wonderful note to end on. Uh, so, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Ekta, for sharing all that you have with us today. And it's always a pleasure talking to you, but all the more in this space because I get to share it with many other people. So, thank you for talking today and sharing all that you have.
Thank you, Apoorva, for being here and for interviewing me. And I'm very glad that Sabine has, of course, created this space for all of us to come together from different parts of women from the global south, especially.
Yeah,
So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and thank you once again for coming on this and being part of this. And let's use whatever spaces we are given to
yeah,
keep the work going and keep
yeah,
the drive for social change going.
yeah, definitely, definitely. That's the plan
Okay.
and the takeaway from today.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.